The Chancellor of the Exchequer has warned that Europe is facing an economic crisis unless there is sweeping reform of the EU. He's called for big cuts in welfare spending and more help for business to counter growing competition from economies in Asia.
Now we have the chance to give the British people a real choice. The biggest economic risk facing Europe doesn't come from those who want reform and renegotiation. It comes from a failure to reform and renegotiate. It is the status quo which condemns the people of Europe to an ongoing economic crisis and continuing decline. And so there is a simple choice for Europe: reform or decline. Our determination is clear: to deliver the reform and then let the people decide. And that's exactly what we will do. Thank you very much.
Well, joining us now to discuss Britain's future relationship with Europe are Nina Schick. She's a policy analyst at Open Europe, which hosted that speech by the Chancellor, and Bernard Jenkin MP, the Conservative who organised the letter for the government, asking for the British government to have a veto on fresh EU legislation. Welcome to you both. There we've got the Chancellor there saying the rest of the EU's got to reform. So are you and him on the same page now?
Well, yes, I think it was a good speech. I mean, he probably wisely didn't go into too much detail about what kind of changes to treaties he wants, but he was very clear about three things. First of all, that democracy and sovereignty and the argument about economic competitiveness are part of the same argument. They can't be separated in the EU. Secondly, that we need to resolve the question: if you're not going to join the euro, what sort of relationship are you going to have with the other European partners within the European Union? And that needs to be resolved. He doesn't want to be left with the choice of either join the euro or leave. And I agree with that. And third, very important, he says the treaties are not fit for purpose. And I think that goes considerably further than the government has gone, or any minister has gone, in terms of renegotiation.
It's pretty much saying rewrite the rules of the EU. Is anybody in the other nation states listening to Britain's message?
Well, Adam, I should point out that this is a pan-European conference for EU reform. We have almost 400 delegates from over 35 countries, including all of the EU 28. So this is not just a British UK conference for EU reform. We have a European Commissioner who's speaking right now as I'm live.
No, but my point is the sort of plans for reform that the Chancellor was outlined there, which is the British plan, what sort of sympathetic hearing or unsympathetic hearing is he getting? Absolutely, there's very sympathetic hearing. Especially, I look at Germany, and when it comes to this idea of competitiveness, believe me, Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, is very, very sympathetic to this, that the EU needs to step up its game. It really needs to be able to compete with countries like India and China, as the Chancellor mentioned in his speech. So just the response to this conference, that all of these people, including, may I add, German MPs who should be sitting in the Bundestag, the new government's first sittings this week, are coming to London for this conference, is very, very encouraging. I mean, God, Bernard Jenkin, this could be a disaster for you lot. I mean, the European Union reforms, and we'll have to stay in the thing, and really you want to get out, don't you?
I don't want to get out, actually. I want to stay in. I'd far rather that we could have a new relationship within the European Union. The question is, what is the principle on which that relationship is going to be based? And the important thing about the Prime Minister's Bloomberg speech a year ago was he made the principle very clear that it should be based upon the principle that national parliaments are the source of democracy and legitimacy. I mean, the Chancellor's drawing an analogy with the German Constitutional Court and saying we want the same sort of deal. Do you think that's exactly right? Is that a fair comparison?
Well, absolutely. When it comes specifically to this question of treaty change, in my view, with the Germans, there will probably have to be some kind of treaty change, because with the German Constitutional Court and the Grundgesetz, it's very likely that, that will have to happen. So I think the Chancellor very wisely picked his words then, making a parallel with Germany.
But I was hearing from another highly respected continental leader this week, and he was saying, well, actually, if Britain wants to make the single market work better, we're all for that, because that's actually making Europe work better. But anything else, really, you've joined a club and you have rules for everyone, not rules that people can opt out of.
Well, I mean, the point about the single market, he would probably argue that the treaties and the whole of the European Union is the single market. That's what it's all about. But actually, we all know the European Union's gone much, much further than is necessary to regulate trade and cooperation between the member states in order to have a single market. And the question is, what do you want? How do we have a trading relationship and a cooperative relationship with our European partners, but without getting drawn into what is clearly going to be a federal state under the euro.
If I may step in. So I think the debate is far too polarised. It's always Eurosceptics versus Europhiles.
Well, it's going to be a yes-no referendum, isn't it?
Yes,
if it happens.
but if it happens, the policy discussions have to be had. And this idea that there is no middle ground is frankly a ridiculous idea.
Exactly
And if you look at the debate in Europe, not just in the UK, the Dutch, they had the Dutch subsidiarity review where they identified 50 plus areas where policy could be repatriated from Brussels. So this idea that the only way forward in Europe is a super centralized state in Brussels is completely false. The Germans, all the way through intergovernmental measures. So.
I mean, I just want to ask you, Bernard Jenkin, hand on heart, let's assume after the next election, still a Conservative-led government of some kind, renegotiations take place, the referendum comes. Can you honestly see yourself campaigning for Britain to stay in the EU?
I could see that, yes. If we gain the kind of relationship that puts Parliament back in charge of our own laws, so our membership is on a completely different basis. It cannot be on the basis that everything is gradually becoming a single European policy in which democracy at the national level means nothing. That's where we're going at the moment.
OK, we're going to have you there. Thank you both very much.